Hello folks, and welcome to another terribly moist episode of the Audiophile Man. And what do I have for you this time around? Well, I have a pair of speakers, bookshelf speakers, stand mount speakers, call them what you will. They are relatively dinky little things. They are from Pmc and they are called the Prodigy1 speakers. And yes, there is no space between the number and the word, and everything is lowercase. Such is Pmc. Now in hi-fi there are, for want of a better word, choke points around which products tend to gather to grab a perceived audience who apparently see these particular points, these choke points, as important. One of those choke points relates to price and tends to circle around the £1,000 mark. You'll find a number of these speakers who cluster around this figure to an exacting or rather looser degree, and the Pmcs are rather looser, but they are generally in that area. Priced at £1,250, the Prodigy1s will certainly catch the eye of prospective buyers. But are they a serious proposition or just another Me Too at that roundabout price point? Spanning 320mm by 165 by 237mm and weighing just 4.5 kilograms, the Prodigy1 speakers are compact and, as you've inferred from my tone, not particularly heavy units. Available in silk black, the cabinets arrive with optional grills, priced at £99. I quite like this stance because it trims the price point off the main speakers. Opting in is a better option and should be used more often. Now that Prodigy1 cabinet does nothing for the "go on, impress me" crowd. It's a little dull and flat in aesthetic terms. Again, that doesn't really bother me. It may bother you though. For myself though, I care more about the sound than pretty wrappers. As long as the work has been done elsewhere, I'm quite happy with the cabinet. However, on that score, the Pmc speakers do remind me of the Technics SB600s, which I have reviewed on this channel, link above, which themselves had a basic bland black cabinet finish. But again, in that particular case, Technics had spent all the money inside the cabinet. Back to the Prodigy1s, and in driver terms, you're looking at a soft domed tweeter spanning a healthy 27mm, and that's of course up top. There's a mid bass unit below of natural fibre spanning 133mm. Right at the bottom, we have a front-loading laminar transmission line base loading port, and that's something you don't normally see at this price point and should provide a bass boost during testing. It should also help position the speakers in a relatively small room, because you can push these speakers further towards the wall with no real sonic issues. One design item of note: inside I noticed that the crossover was physically positioned behind the drivers. But that's got to do with the optimization of those transmission lines for the speakers themselves. Now, these are 6-ohm speakers, which may concern one or two of you out there. In terms of actually driving the speakers themselves, according to Pmc though, and I quote, "The Prodigy1's impedance response is very benign. There are no dips below 5 ohms at all, and most frequencies are above 7 ohms. We rate the speaker at 6 ohms just to try to give as much of an honest representation as possible of the load of the speaker will present to an amplifier. We are sure that many companies would quite happily rate them as 8-ohm speakers based on their impedance response." Finally, and related to that statement, the Prodigy1 speakers have a decent 87.5 decibel sensitivity, so you'll probably only need a 20-watt amplifier or above to run them. So much for the tech. How do these speakers sound? Well, let's nip over to the sound quality tests and we'll find out. Now, I still had a copy of Elton John's Madman Across the Water on my turntable from the Star 6 Power Block review, and if you missed that, it's not on YouTube. It's on my website, link below in the description. So I carried on with that and the single from the album, Tiny Dancer. And as a reference, I brought in a similarly priced pair of speakers from Spendor, the company's excellent A1 designs. So what did I think of the Prodigy1s then? Well, clarity. That's what hit me. Clarity. The soundstage sounded absolutely scrubbed and clean. In fact, it sounded like someone had been busy with the Mr. Sheen. Every corner of the soundstage on this track positively sparkled. With that came a focus around the vocals that added a slight debossing effect, I would say. Elements of Elton's vocal cords were almost raised for inspection. The texture of the man's voice was emphasized and promoted by the Prodigy1 speakers. So when he hit his double tracking harmonies, they hit the ear with a tremendously rich effect. Also, treble, because of that clean, spacious soundstage, had a perfect canvas to work from. So, cymbal taps were sharp yet fragile and elegant. Piano was resonant and it rang with each finger strike, giving once more a rich and full-bodied response, while the lead and rhythm guitars were now precise and exacting. Which did not mean that bass was left behind either, because bass was also focused, but sharply impactful. Each drum hit was full-toned. There was no flab here either. So you did get that 70s era plump bass response, but bass never dragged. The tempo was maintained. So I changed the reference and I removed the A1s from the hot seat and decided to look at the recently released pair of Sandwich 150s from Leek, a design that physically dwarfs the PMCs but retails for a similar-ish price, slightly less actually, and I carried on with Mr. John for now. Now the Leeks remain excellent speakers. I gave those designs a good review here, once more, link above, and I'm sticking to that. They competed well with the PMCs, offering a big bass response from that large cabinet and a lean presentation. Well, in comparison to the PMCs at any rate, which offered detail and also clarity. If anything, the Prodigy1s provided a richer, fuller mid-range with a resonant treble. The bank of violins really impressed in the weight of sound they delivered, with the separation in the upper mids adding complexity. That is, there was a gap between each instrument and between those and the vocal, which added to the complexity of the soundstage as a whole. Bass from the Prodigy1s did not have the Leek bulk or that impressive, expansive breadth of the larger cabinets from the Leek, but the PMC bass response was certainly impactful and tonally impressive. Moving to CD now, and shoegaze outfit Lush and the album Spooky. I played the track Stray and again was wholly impressed with the clarity. The guitar wash of noise didn't stop me hearing the complexity of the harmonies, but also delicate cymbal taps. The PMCs were able to dig out such information with relative ease without resorting to any compressive cheating. I then tried the Prodigy1 speakers in my near-field office AV system. Now this is a rather cramped arrangement. It is in my office, it's not in my lounge. It's stuffed on some IKEA shelving and there's some nice components on there. There's a Riga Brio R amplifier, a topping E30 DAC, a pair of Spendor S3 5R speakers, some EQ isolator feet from Stack Audio, a link above, and QED cabling. To begin, I played a CD through my Sony Blu-ray player. I played the newly reissued remastered combo Tuscany from Renaissance from Esoteric. I think this is a remaster of a 2001 album, I think. And I sat about, 5 feet from the speakers, giving me that near-field sound. And that sound, well, how can I describe this? Wow, I think, is the response after hearing the Prodigy1s. Yeah, I think wow is good. Performed at relatively high volume, the Prodigy1 speakers offered a cultured performance. Clarity, again, spilled out of the cabinets. The presentation was superbly clear and defined with a great sense of 3D imagery to add richness to the performance. Tonal realism from the strumming guitars and string effects, well, they all sat well with the emotive lead female vocal. And because of that clarity, very low volume performance was also excellent. General viewing via YouTube was easy to do at all volumes, high and also low. mixing speech with background music. During late-night low-volume sessions, I had no problems at all hearing any of the content, while what was there provided a quality listening experience. Late-night listening will also be a joy with the Prodigy1s if you have a gaming PC or a similar console setup. This pairing will provide a to-die-for high-end audio gaming experience. And that's basically the review. Let me give you a few final thoughts, and I have one or two of those. I'll give you some pros and cons and a final rating. So at first glance then, the Pmc Prodigy1 speakers don't look particularly special, gotta say, and I guess that's where the budget has been spent here, on the tech inside the cabinet, as opposed to the cabinet itself. And personally, again, you may disagree, but I like that priority. If you are going to compromise, I think this is the way to do it. Because the Prodigy1 speakers sound much more expensive than their price point suggests. They have a full, rich and bountiful suite of upper frequencies with a great supporting cast of bass frequencies that adds a solid and characterful response to the lower end. Relatively compact they may be, but these speakers offer an attractive sound that will complement any hi-fi system. Feed them a quality signal though, and they'll reward you in spades. Pros and cons. And in the good section, we have some rather delectable mid-range, rather rich in tone, I would say. And related to that, I suppose, we have a suite of elegant treble frequencies. Very nice indeed. Bass, especially for the small cabinet, was again impressive. Bass offered a great character, some really good tonal realism. Next, clarity. As I say, it sounded like the soundstage had been scrubbed clean. Everything was right on point. Finally, well, traditionally, these speakers come from a studio environment, and in the studio, they work perfectly as near-field speakers. Well, let me tell you, in the home, they are also perfect near-field speakers. In the bad section, well, I know this is all personal opinion, of course, but I do think these speakers look aesthetically prosaic. However, I like the fact that the build budget has concentrated on the tech and making these speakers sound as good as possible, which is why I'm going to be giving the Pmc Prodigy1 speakers a 9 out of 10 and a deeply groovy congratulations to Pmc. And that's your lot. Now, before you go, there's a couple of buttons just down here somewhere that I'd like you to press before you disappear. The like and subscribe buttons, please. Further down in the description, you will find a link to these speakers, the Pmc website, if you want to read more about them. And there are my own links, of course, my website, my Facebook group, which you're welcome to join, and my Patreon page, which also has an exclusive video every single week. There's one out brand new this week, and there's also buyer's guides, and there's features, and there's tour videos and other stuff. So check it out. I'll be back next week on I'm not sure if it's a Friday or a Saturday, with music alerts, and tell you all the latest vinyl, CDs, and sometimes books I've received that particular week. It'll only be a quickie 10-minute thing. Even so, I'd love to have your company. And until then, folks, bye-bye for now.